Brothas podcast. My name is Keenan, joined by my brother Kyle. As always, you guys can clearly see a new face. That's the face of Kamden, a friend of the show, guest of the show. Kamden, how's it going?
I'm doing really good today. I'm glad to be here. It's a late night, but I'm happy to be here. Love talking sports, so we're good.
Of course, and Kyle, of course, how are you?
I'm great. Glad to have Cam along with us. Cam was good.
Of course.
Ready to talk some hoops. You know, NBA
Yeah.
is winding down. We got about 2 weeks left, so I'm ready to talk some hoops for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And so, coming in, we came out with some questions. Each of us, I don't know Kyle's questions or Kamden's questions. They don't know my questions, so it's kind of gonna be on the spot. But it's how we do it here. So I'm gonna start off with the first question here. We're getting down to the stretch run. We know it's a playoff time. We know. Obviously, the regular season's cool, but the playoffs where you get your name, the playoffs where you gain your legend. What players do you think gained the most from a championship this season?
Ooh, I like that.
We're starting off right there.
Yeah, we're starting off right there. What players gained the most from a championship this season?
Camden, I'll let you answer first. You're the guest, so I'm interested to hear Camden's
So me?
answer. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
all you.
So,
He said me.
I would say the team / the players on that team that would gain the most from this, specifically one of them, is James Harden, dude. I think James Harden would his playoff series has just not been it. He's always had amazing regular seasons, and then that playoff comes around and he's lost in the first round, other times in other rounds, you know?
Yeah.
And they're really meshing in Philadelphia right now. This awesome thing going on. I think it would be great to see Joel finally get there. I think he would end up getting a Finals MVP if he went to the Finals.
Most
but I
likely.
think James Harden, for his resume, getting a ship this year would be huge. I think he is the most to gain.
Okay.
I really do that.
All right, Kyle, you?
Listen, Camden kind of stole my answer. James Harden for sure, especially if he plays a meaningful part, which he should. I mean, he's number 2 on that team.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, you gain your legend in the playoffs. He's had so many mishaps and honestly bad games in the playoffs, or moments where he just doesn't show up. He's just like, I'm good not shooting the ball. I'm good just dishing it to Gerald Green and let him shoot the ball.
Yeah.
So, yeah, James Harden to me is the clear-cut answer. You know, Kamden mentioned the organization of Philly themselves. I mean, that'd be the Sixers' first championship since '83, I believe. You know, that gives
One of the
Doc
greatest
2
teams of all
rings.
time, by the way.
For sure. That gives Doc 2 rings, so that puts him in a different stratosphere. Harden, giant monkey off his back. And, of course, you know, that elevates Embiid in the fantastic season he had. But if I had to limit it to one player,
Yeah.
James Harden. Now I'm going to give you a bonus answer here, too. I would throw KD in there.
You can give a
Now,
couple.
It's a little unfair to KD because he's only played 3 games for Phoenix. But, I mean, look, I'm going to be honest. This is just me, and I'm sure there's a large sentiment of basketball fans who feel this way. But his rings to me with Golden State are like, okay, like whatever. Like you put any all-star caliber small forward in those positions, I think Golden State still gets those rings. You know what I mean? At least all-star. Harrison Barnes was the small forward prior to that, and he's like literally the edge of an all-star, right? Like he's like what separates average to above average to an all-star. Like he's right in that above average tier, you know? And they were winning rings with him. If they would have brought any all-star small forward who can play at minimum good defense,
Chris Middleton,
and hit you threes, right?
Pascal Siakam at that time.
I'm saying, I think they do it. So yeah, I don't want to minimize it because I think KD is, you know, about as all-time great as you can get. Like I love KD's game and everything about his game, but yeah,
absolutely,
him getting a ring with Phoenix would elevate it a little bit for me. So James Harden's is my true answer, but I would throw Kevin Durant in there as well. How about you, Keenan?
Let me build off of that real quick, though.
Go for
I
it.
think another player on that team that would benefit maybe even more than KD is Chris Paul. I think Chris Paul getting a ring would be
Thank
huge.
God.
Yeah,
That's very true. Especially,
I think he needs it, to be honest.
much like, I can't believe I left that out there, but you're right. Especially if he plays like a big part, like I said with James Harden. As long as he plays an instrumental part, which you would think he'd have to, yeah, it does go a long way for him.
Of course, yeah.
Because I think he was injured, but I think he kind of no-showed in games because it went to 6 games, right, with Milwaukee. I think games 5 and 6 against Milwaukee, Chris Paul kind of no-showed in the finals 2 seasons ago. So, Durant would elevate it. Durant and Booker would elevate it. But, if Chris Paul was out there playing defense, playing his ass off, and being like a A-plus role player for them / point guard, that will look good on his resume, depending on how that plays out. But, we'll get to what we think happens in the playoffs probably later. So I'm not too bullish on Phoenix compared to a Philly if it came down to it, especially with how many games Durant's missed. But, yeah, I absolutely agree with Cam there. Absolutely agree with Cam.
I do, too. I think Chris Paul would be one to game. To touch on your Warriors point a little bit, of definitely Kevin Durant needs that. He's never been – he was the number one guy. Like, you argue he was probably the best player on that team. He did win the 2 finals MVPs. The second one could be debatable. But, I mean, Draymond Green gets suspended for Game 5. They're clearly up 3-1. Steph's coming off of 38. And Harrison Barnes scores 0 points. With Draymond Green suspended, I mean, don't get me wrong. Kyrie Irving,
Kyle Warner.
garbage. Kyrie Irving and LeBron James had dual 41s. Clearly, like an all-time performance from both of them. So I'm not going to take anything away, but that game was pretty close throughout the entirety of it. If Harrison Barnes makes some open shots, because they were open, and Draymond's not suspended, we might not be talking about LeBron getting one in Cleveland. It might have been a 4-peat for the Warriors. We don't know. Because they were going for Kevin Durant regardless, and Kevin Durant might go there anyway. But
I would think if they won that,
obviously,
KD doesn't go there, but it doesn't really matter because it's bad enough that he went, given what happened.
Yeah.
The situation how it played out.
You would think they wouldn't.
So, but who knows?
You would think he wouldn't, but he did lose to them 3-1 anyway. That championship might not have meant the world to him regardless. But anyway, moving on. Because I love James Harden and Embiid. I love those answers. I love the Chris Paul. I love the Kevin Durant answer as well. I had all of them on my list, so I'm going to give you 2 more for different reasons. One, Nikola Jokic. I think that he is just, as Kyle and I were talking about a couple episodes ago, he is just so misunderstood almost. Like in half the sports media, he's not that good. He's been back-to-back MVP, and other than Steve Nash, every back-to-back MVP has been a top 2 player in the league. And a lot of people are going to say he's not the best. That's Giannis. Second best, people would argue Steph, Luka. He's in that conversation. Don't get me wrong, but it's like the weird nature with him and surrounding his name. So I think you get a championship the first time you've really got like a collective around you that is healthy, that is ripe to go, and you bring them to a championship. I think that could do wonders for him. Yeah. And I don't think you can try to argue it, but I think that argument of possibly Embiid or Jokic just becomes Jokic. That best player in the league conversation could be interesting. I still would go Giannis because of the defensive prowess that he has, but at the same time, you can be like, okay, 2-time MVP as Giannis is as well. Probably runner-up this year, maybe 3. It all depends on that jambalaya there. And then I got a championship on top of that. Well, obviously with a finals MVP there too, probably. It's interesting. So I think Jokic is one of them that could gain massively off of that championship. And the second one, legacy-wise, I think is Steph. I think with the Warriors, how they've been this season, they had back-to-back road wins for the second time this year for beating Dallas. That team has been a roller coaster at best. You have a season where it starts with Draymond punching Jordan Poole. Steph's maybe had his best season since his MVP season, his second MVP season. If he takes them to a championship, finals MVP, they go back-to-back again, you don't have it now, but you start to say, okay, Larry Bird. Is he better than Bird? Is he better than Kobe? Is he better than Shaq? So I think you can start to have those arguments. I mean, you could kind of make it now, but with a fifth, two Finals MVPs, put it there, you can go. But yeah, absolutely. I'm done.
My thing, because you just said, is he better than Kobe, Shaq, Bird? My thing when it comes to legacy, when it comes to shit like that, is who has a better resume, not necessarily who's the better player, because I think it gets sticky when you say who's the better player. You know what I mean? Because it's hard for me to imagine a world where Steph is more dominant than Shaq. Like, for everything that Shaq's resume is, you can put Shaq really up next to anybody, given his dominance for those, especially those 3 years. Those 3 years, right?
His 36 and 15 over a 3-year stretch in the finals is absurd. But go on.
Because I don't really want to get into the, the overcovered MJ LBJ argument. But my argument, whenever it comes up, is never who's better. It's never who's better, because I think player for player, you can't. There's no holes in either one of their games, really, right?
You can't go wrong with LeBron. Like, it can't go wrong with Jordan, though. So go on.
The only thing you could say about LeBron is, like, maybe his foul shooting at the end of games. And the only thing you could say about MJ is that he's, not a fucking linebacker like LeBron. You know what I mean? He's, like, pretty average size for a two-guard. Other than that, player for player, you cannot go wrong, right? The resume is where the resume, and I'll use this example. No, I won't. I'm not even going to bring it up because we've talked about it too much. But, yeah, I will, because I'm starting my point. Look at that. I'm arguing with myself like Charles Barkley. The argument came up at the argument came up at All-Star Weekend. The guys brought it up, LeBron or MJ. And I said, and I probably said this on the pod before, it's still MJ to me because he's still outselling everybody in sneakers. That matters when it's 30 years later, 20 years later from his career. That says something. That's just not normal in any sport or anything. So I'm not never talking about skill for skill. Part of it's MJ's resume, but part of it's his impact that still looms, whether it's the culture, whether it's the game, da-da-da. That's besides the point. So that's my thing when people say, Steph, this player is better than this player. It's hard to argue with Steph's two-way ability compared to a Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
Dominance, you could argue Steph a little bit. But, Keenan, what I thought you were talking about when you say fifth, I thought you were going to bring up your favorite new argument, which is Steph versus LeBron, because I can only imagine what the Bron sexuals will be like if Steph gets his fifth, especially this year, given what the Warriors look like.
If he gets it this year, dude.
Listen, he hasn't. That's more than LeBron. I think LeBron's a better player all time. I would say that. I don't think a fifth for me personally changes it. I think the dominance that LeBron has on both ends. But you can argue now, like, whose decade is it? I did that over the last 10 seasons. I did it for school. 2-1. I mean, LeBron had 7 finals appearances. Curry had 6. LeBron won 3. LeBron won 4. Curry won 4. Like, it was neck and neck, like, right there. So it would be very, very interesting. But the reason why I bring them up is because in the all-time list, I know obviously his career is still going, but people have him around that 10 to 14 range, which is in the Hakeem, Dr. J, Moses Malone, Shaq, Bird, Kobe. You put you're talking resumes. Bird has 3 MVPs. Curry would have 2, but he has more than Shaq and more than Kobe. You could argue Kobe in 06, Shaq in 05. It didn't go that way. We clearly know. Championships, Bird's got 3, so Curry would have 2 more than him. He'd have 1 more than Shaq, and he would tie Kobe. They both would be 5-2 in the finals. So, like, their finals record is there as well. If Curry got MVP there, they would both have 2 finals MVPs. Then you go on impact on the game. Curry did change the game. Obviously, Kobe had a very huge impact on the game as well. So their impact is close too. It's right there. You have one of the greatest, obviously, all-around players ever, the best, worst shot maker, if you want to say, in Kobe. But then you have the greatest shooter of all time. No argument there in any, like, with Steph. So it really could be an argument on who is there. And then that could be Curry at 7. And then the next talk is Duncan. Not to get too deep into it, but, like, I think a 5th really could propel him and his like legacy super high, especially with this team that right now no one would assume is going to win it. They're like looking at 3 or 4 other teams in the West. So that's why I think he could be another one. But Jokic definitely too.
Quick retort, because we do want to get to question 2 here.
Absolutely.
5 certainly puts you in rarefied air. But much like I said, Durant, how I'm kind of like whatever about those rings because it was involved with Steph, I kind of give that same handicap to Steph as well. You know what I mean? So his 5, I look a bit differently. A little bit, just a little bit. But
also Kobe had Shaq. Shaq had Kobe.
I agree, and we'll talk about that another day. Because that's a thought I've thought about a lot. But next with that, you mentioned him again compared to Kobe, compared to Duncan, compared to all of them. I'm in the same place with Curry as I was with LeBron before the scoring record, because that puts LeBron in especially rarefied air now. Just wait and see with Curry. You know what I mean? The way Steph's going, he's getting injured every 3 weeks. Steph could have a career-ending injury next year. You know what I mean? I don't want to compare him and Kobe and him and Shaq and him and Duncan and him and Bird quite yet, just because we don't know how much longer he has. Now, if he has 5 more years of this and they're in contention, that puts him in a different place. But that's just me. Let's move on to question 2, though, because we got a lot more questions.
100% fine with that.
Yeah.
This second one is going to come quick from me. NBA-wise or whatever, pickup-wise, whatever, would you guys rather see a crossover where a guy falls and then hit a 3 on him or hit a jump shot on him, or would you rather see a poster?
That's a great question. In any event?
Personal. Any event you can put the situation, and if you want to put like a pickup and then put a NBA situation on it, you can go for it. It's up to you.
I'm going poster, dude. I'm going poster.
Fair enough.
I think that crossovers are crazy. They're unreal, and any situation with you dropping somebody and hitting them, it's dope. But a poster, dude. Like, I'm just thinking about, like, what got me going as a kid, and just seeing DeAndre Jordan dunking on Brandon Knight would get me going.
Oh, what a monster jam by DeAndre Jordan.
That was great.
Yep.
I seen that dunk the other day, too.
Like, an unreal body, dude, is, I think, unmatched in a lot of ways. But let me tell you one other thing. If Kyrie hit that shot, that one time where he fell on the ground when he was on the Nets, he fell on the ground, buzzer beater, low-key crossed him up on the ground, nearly hit it this close, that might be another moment.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I would say poster, though.
Fair enough. Kyle, you?
I think I'm going to agree with Cam there. The games I've been to, or whether it's pickup, like at an actual game, seeing a poster is different. You know what I mean? It's probably different if it's Kyrie or Steph or someone like that, or Jamal Crawford, someone who's got serious handle, and their crossovers to a 3 or crossover to a jump shot. It is akin to a poster, only for them though. You know what I mean? There's a select few. Like if you're in the building for that Iguodala crossover against the Nuggets when he was on the Warriors, I mean he's still on the Warriors, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, that's one that's crazy, but that's kind of – it's got to be so specific. Whereas even a nasty dunk by itself, like last night, Paul George, who, by the way, thank God he's only out for 3 weeks. That 360 in traffic was nuts. That's like one of my favorite dunks of the year. And he ain't dunk on anybody.
Did you see Ja tonight?
Ja had one?
Yeah, on KJ Martin.
I'll look it up.
He had a double clutch. It was nasty. It was a double clutch.
So, yeah, no, I would have to go dunk, too. I would have to go poster, too, because I'm going to look it up right now while y'all are talking.
I would. I go back and forth on this because there's an aspect to like, obviously, I've dunked on, like, 8-foot rims, 9-foot rims, whatever. I can't dunk on a 10-foot rim. So there's an aspect of dunks that's almost, like, quote-unquote mysterious for me just because I've never done it. I just know how difficult it is to actually make somebody fall. So sometimes I lean towards that because I'm thinking, like, what embarrasses you more? LeBron on Nurkic
you see my
or
face
Harden
reacting
on
to
Wesley Johnson? What?
I didn't even say, I said, did you see my face reacting to Ja's dunk? Like, that tells you all you need to know was my face reacting to Ja's slow motion dunk. What'd you say, though, Kim?
Absolutely.
I think you said a good question, but I was too busy reacting here. What'd you say?
No.
Did he break
That's
his nose,
fine.
by the way?
That's
He's got a
literally
mask.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't know why he's masked up like MF Doom either. I have no idea. But no, Ja took off. But like what's like cuz I'm just thinking to myself like what obviously it's not just this, but what's more embarrassing, being Wesley Johnson when you're James Harden or being like Nurkic when you're Bron?
Yeah, it's Nurkic.
Like that's like
I'll say this.
I think it would be Wesley Johnson. I think falling like that and then having Harden just stare at you, like just looking at you like you're a bum, and then hitting the three. Like this is so disrespectful. It's almost more disrespectful than a dunk. I don't know.
I've been dropped before on crossover, and it's embarrassing. But like it happens to everybody. Like everybody's been crossed. Everybody's been left. Everybody's had. I've gotten dropped, and it's embarrassing for a second. You know what I mean? You deserve the shit that's talked to you, and then it's over. I've thought about this, though. I've never been dunked on, but I'm thinking, like, if I really got dunked on like that, it'd probably fuck up my game for, like, at least 3 plays. Like, imagine if someone bodied you the way. He mentioned DeAndre on Brandon Knight. Imagine if that happened to you. I would literally leave the court.
Unreal, right?
I'd be like, I just caught diarrhea. I gotta go, guys. Like, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. Like, you'd never see me on that court again.
You know what?
Not at least for a year.
Like, imagine if you got
Fake
dunked
an
on.
ACL injury?
Like, yeah.
You know what? I actually, you saying that right now just made me think to my basketball like life. I've refused to get dunked on. I've been been dropped one time by Caleb Brew, and that was on a fast break. I was not great. But the thing about getting crossed is you have the chance to go back at that person, and if you can score the next play or get them, you can nullify that.
There's redemption.
It is very difficult to just nullify a poster, because then you kind of have to get another poster, because if you just like get a nice little move and like a jump shot or whatever, people are going to look at you like
you could at least drop them
that
on the way
doesn't matter.
back. You'd have to get him with an ankle breaker. That's the only thing.
Yeah,
close.
You have to like...
Or send the nicest pass you've ever sent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it has to be like special. Yeah. So I might lean dunk, even though I love to. I think the dunk's more disrespectful and embarrassing. I almost think I like to watch a crossover a little more, just because of the aspect of I try to do that and the difficulty that it takes to actually really get someone that bad. Like, obviously, you can get someone, shift them, but it's different when you are Iggy, or when you are against Nuggets, or you're Kyrie, Brandon Knight, or you're like these other like AI. Like, there's just different kind of crossovers. So that was I love watching those two, but both are obviously spectacles.
Electric. Yep.
They are electric.
Yep. I'm just thinking in my head, just like imagining myself trying to get Donovan Mitchell yesterday. Just going up the best I could, and it's Donovan Mitchell. Just like ungodly, raise it up into the air and slamming on you, and how you just have to take that
and then just go back offense,
and just be. What can you do? What can you do? It's not like you're going to get another poster off that. You're not going to go at Donovan. It's crazy, man. So it's tricky.
I agree completely.
That's fair. That is fair, and I do agree with you there. So, and then my third question is, who is the next face of the NBA?
Ooh.
Well, it would be Zion if we're talking about American players. Ja kind of took that from him. Ja's the American face, probably, but it's probably going to be Luka if you had to give me one. It'd probably be Luka.
Probably. And another thing that I was going to mention, too, that I didn't bring up is a championship for Ja and Tatum would be great. I think those are going to be right now your two best American-born players, which is easier to be the face because it's obviously an American league. So if Tatum was to redeem himself, have a great playoff run, and get that championship, he would make himself probably the best American-born player. And I don't know, there's just something about him that doesn't feel like a face, but I think you wouldn't be able to deny him. You can deny him any more top 5 in the league. I think you just, like,
sure.
he has to be there, regardless of, like, how you feel. Because even you and I were talking when we were going through the league, it's like, Tatum's behind them, but why? It's like almost a feeling. It's not even just the game sometimes. It's just like, why is he behind him? But he is. It's
Tatum's
weird.
He's in this rarefied air that's literally by himself. He's better than people like.
Yeah.
He's better night to night than someone like LeBron or AD right now, right? Because he's more healthy than them.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And he can play defense at an elite level, and then obviously his offense is there. But he's not.
Yes.
And you probably still put him ahead of Ja, right? But where Ja would have him in the face of the league is because Ja's highlights are crazy. Because Ja does play just as hard as him. Like Ja, I've said this, Ja's this generation's AI. You know, just his appeal, how he plays, how hard he plays, his ridiculous athleticism, his highlights. You know what I mean? Ja puts himself. That gets you face of the league type stuff. So Tatum being American, he could do all he wanted. He's never going to be the face of the league the way Ja could or Luka could. And Luka has been dominating this league since he's 20 years old. You know what I mean? So Luka's going to be also rarefied air. But yeah, Tatum's in a weird spot where he's better than everybody else, but he's not as good as an Embiid, a Jokic, a Doncic. Even though Trent would argue that. Trent's favorite argument right now is Doncic versus Tatum. And it's a good argument because Tatum's certainly
I think it's a good argument, yeah.
He's certainly a better two-way player than Luka, but you know, if you put Luka on the Celtics, what do the Celtics look like right now? You know what I mean? So,
yeah. The thing with Tatum right now is he's low-key a streaky shooter. Like, if he's on, he's on.
Especially since the break.
If he's scoring that 23, since that break, it's been rough. If he's at 23 and he's shooting, I don't know. I think he's shooting like 30% from 3, which I'm not loving it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing with Luka that makes him a little bit better is Tatum hasn't. He can do it, but it's not a night-to-night thing. When Luka's jump shot's not flowing, he affects the game regardless of his defensive liability, being a defensive liability at times. His effect on the game is so massive that even on a bad shooting night, he can still feel like the best player. Tatum on a bad shooting night, he can because he's that talented, but he doesn't always feel like the best player. He's coming along with it, but it just needs to be a little bit more consistent, if that makes sense.
I would push back on that.
I would agree.
I would push back on that. I would say Tatum, I almost like Tatum's effect on the game more if he's having a bad shooting night than Luka, just because of what Tatum can bring defensively and on the glass. And he's an underrated playmaker. Tatum gets you 5 to 8 assists, you know what I mean? Whereas Luka's going to get all the attention.
He just can't get you 20 like Luka.
True, but Luka's 20. I mean, I've said what I think about Luka's passing. He's not as willing as maybe LeBron was, but you know, you can go back to the last podcast where we had this exact conversation. But Luka can get you 20 assists for sure. But yeah, it's an interesting conversation just because of how much of a one-way player is Luka is right now. But we did see that with Steph, and Steph right now I would say is at least a B to even a B plus defender right now, whereas before you might have gave Steph a C plus to a B minus.
He's definitely picked up,
he's got his strengths.
No, he's not. Steph's not a liability anymore. He's semi a plus because he reads the passing lanes well. He's going to give 100% effort, and he's got quick hands. It's kind of like how Bird was at this point.
He's got the body now too.
It's kind of like how Bird, a different way, but Bird was.
And even look at like a Brook Lopez, who he's not the most fleet of foot, and he might win Defensive Player of the Year this year. And that's someone.
You know, he's been phenomenal.
He's been nice this year.
Exactly, and I would have said that 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Brook Lopez.
You wouldn't know. You literally wouldn't know.
Never.
His brother was better defender. Like not obviously like the level that Robin Lopez got you, but Robin Lopez coming in was a better defender than Brook Lopez for sure. Brook Lopez was just long so he could block shots, but like defensively he wasn't that.
I agree. So,
I got
a few players that I think could be the face of the NBA. Okay. One of them. Did any of you say Giannis? None of you.
I was going to mention Giannis. Okay. That's weird. He could be the best player for the next like half decade and still maybe not be the face, which is weird. I don't know.
It's weird because he's like in that weird Milwaukee space. and like Milwaukee doesn't get the hype that like Giannis should get.
Mm-hmm.
But like if Giannis wins another ring this year, next year, he's definitely got that face. And I think it's tough with players like Ja because when I think of Ja, I almost always think of somebody like Derrick Rose, who he could be the face or electric for 2, 3 years, but there's not been a lot of longevity with a player like him. The
Absolutely.
second player that I think this is gonna be like my long shot answer. Okay,
Wembanyama.
this dude, nope. Anthony Edwards, I think could legitimately, if he moves or if he makes it work there, that dude is unreal.
He's
And
got the
if
game.
if the Timberwolves say, "Yo, we're building around Ant and we're making this work," he could do it. That man could do it. If he moves, goes somewhere else, and works with somebody, I think he's got the game in the bag to really make it happen. I
I
love
don't even
Anthony
hate
Edwards.
that. I do not hate that. He needs to take that next step. Like he kind of like Dwayne Wade reminds me of like he
Hmm.
reminds me of Wade a little bit. And if you think of Wade, obviously Wade was very good early on. Showed that he was a closer. Showed super athletic. Layups out of this world. Obviously, Anthony Edwards can bounce out of
Hmm.
this world. He had one of the best dunks I've ever seen, honestly, a couple years back.
Yep.
But if he like Wade had that finals run, and that
Exactly.
finals really brought him like, oh my goodness, who is this guy? He averaged
Hmm.
like he was getting comparisons to Mike at that point because of how
Yep.
electric he was in the finals. Like
Yep.
if Anthony Edwards could have a run like that, that could make
That
him
could jump
very
him up.
interesting because he does have the electricity of the game. Like he can get hot from three, but he also can go punch on you. He can finish around the like, and then his athleticism allows him. He's gonna become a better defender throughout. So
Hmm.
I don't even hate that. I don't know if it'll
Yeah.
happen, but I don't hate it.
I don't know if it'll happen, but I could
I don't hate it.
see that road going down, and I
I-
love his game.
I don't hate it.
Quick
Yep.
response before we get to
Oh,
Camden's three.
Yep.
You
Yep.
mentioned Giannis, and it's crazy that none of us mentioned Giannis. I do believe, like Camden said, him being in Milwaukee, he's going to be kind of, and it depends, maybe he'll catch on with the American audience. I think he is really popular. But it's always
Yeah,
in
oh,
comparison to LeBron and
He's so
Steph
popular,
right
yep.
now. You know what I mean? LeBron and Steph are kind of the co-faces of the league. Like
They're
LeBron
the
more than
co-faces.
Steph, obviously.
Mhm.
But, you know, Steph's definitely 1B to LeBron's 1A. So Giannis is right there, but he could be in this weird Tim Duncan space where he's probably the most successful player of his generation, but it just doesn't catch. It's very possible.
You could.
The reason why I wouldn't
Tim
put-
Duncan was probably. You could go on. Sorry. Go
Oh
on.
no, go ahead, because you were finishing a good point.
I was just saying Tim Duncan was probably the best player in like you could argue the best player in the league from 02 to 06, 07. Like you are until you can make that argument. He had 2 MVPs, he won 3 championships within that time. Like you could argue he was the best player in the league, but he never was like the face like a Kobe or like a Shaq or AI at that time either, even. But you go on.
Yeah, I would say like it was really like a Shaq Kobe AI split. Like I've said it's AI, but it really was like a threesome of them being the co-faces of the league. Now, thing with all about Shaq, AI, and Kobe, what they had though, they already had their names while Jordan was in the league, right? So by the time Jordan retires, you know who they are. And that's where Ja is right now, where Anthony Edwards is not. Everyone knows Anthony Edwards, sure, especially if you're a ball fan, right? We all know Anthony Edwards, but the popularity Ja has right now is what Shaq or Kobe or an Allen
Powerade.
Iverson had.
Dunkaroos.
Yeah,
First
he's got his own
Shoe,
sneakers, so
those kind of things.
it's got to be Ja from an American perspective. He's the one. It would be Zion had he played. It'd be Zion and Ja right now. That would be the conversation. But, you know,
Yeah.
Zion can't stay on the court. So for me, it's definitely Ja. And then on the international side, Luka over Giannis just because of how early Luka's been dominating over here. And he's already got that appeal with the kids too. But Giannis is there too. But he just might be, like Camden said, because of Milwaukee, it might dock him a few points. But we really don't know. If Giannis gets a 3-peat, which, you know, could happen, it's probably not going to happen, but it's possible, right? He's in his prime. That sends you to a different stratosphere. So it all depends on winning at the end of the day. And, you know, look, Giannis has the highlights. He absolutely has the highlights, so that's going for him. But let's move on to Camden's questions. I'm interested to hear what he has.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, my first question is this.
Yep.
It's the season's coming to an end, right?
Yeah.
And I've been so interested, more specifically in the West right now,
Yeah, of
and
course.
how the West, when the playoffs happen, are going to blow my mind.
Wide open.
I think that this
Wide
could
open.
be a year where lower seeds could win. The 1, 2, and 3 seeds have like very little to no playoff experience, slash, like they're young. Whereas the Warriors are like a 6 seed right now. The Lakers could get in at a 10, and they've been looking really nice. The Clippers are down below. The Suns are lower. I think that it's going to be like this really, really interesting thing where, like, do we think that their records are not an actual reflection of the power rankings going in because of the trade deadline that happened with, like, the trades that happened, and then legitimately, like, the Warriors are the Warriors, and they might end up like a 7, 8 seed, right? They
Hmm.
might be that seed. Do you imagine the Nuggets going up against the Warriors or the Lakers with LeBron?
It,
I don't. It's going to be interesting.
it's going to be super interesting. The Nuggets don't want to see the Lakers, and
Nope.
the Kings. Obviously, the Kings are young, so they're going to be fine with whatever. But like, if right now, if it was Sacramento and Golden State, who are you taking?
That completely
Right?
depends
Now,
on
Sacramento's
if
offense
Wiggins
has
comes
been
back for me.
unreal.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Yep,
the health
yep,
of Wiggins and
it
Gary
does.
Payton the second. Gary Payton definitely looks like he's gonna be back before the playoffs. I think from what I've seen, Wiggins is undisclosed
TBD.
because of the person who matters. Yeah, so we don't know with Wiggins. I've heard that he possibly could be out for the rest of the season with this. I've also heard like whatever, you don't really know what's going on because no one really knows. They're just speculating off of kind of what they found from inside whatever. But just say that Wiggins and Peyton are back.
Exactly.
That the 7 seed Warriors you would probably take over the Kings due to experience. They have the best player on the floor, and like so even regardless of the road record, I know they're such a veteran team. We think they can probably win 1 out of 4. You would
Right.
think so. That is going to be interesting. And then like Lakers Nuggets. I understand like you'd have to go with the Nuggets, but Braun, AD, D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reeves has been playing well.
Vanderbilt.
Vanderbilt's been playing great defense. You've got Dennis Schroeder's been playing well for them as well. You've got they've built a team. Malik Beasley as well. They've built a team to where they can compete. So it's like, would it be that crazy if the Nuggets got upset in the first round? Like it wouldn't. Like I wouldn't. Obviously, it would be like, oh wow, the Nuggets really lost in the first round as a 1 seed. But like we've seen it before, and this is not your regular 8 seed. You have 2 of the top 10 players in the league or 2 top 12 if you want to call Anthony Davis fluctuating. But like still, that doesn't really happen as an 8 seed. So
Nope.
yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. The power rankings and the standings are gonna matter for home court, but it's not going to always indicate the best team going into that series. But Kyle, what do you say about that?
So, what was the question? Basically, that the standings as is, do I think they are representative of what the teams actually are? Is that what you're asking?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I agree with Keenan. When it pertains to Golden State, it completely depends on Wiggins more than Gary Payton, as far as the first round goes. If they get Wiggins back,
Oh, yeah, 100%.
if they get Wiggins back and he's in rhythm, playing good defense, hitting threes, yeah, I'd probably give the Warriors the edge over the Kings. In that hypothetical matchup, let's say it's Warriors-Kings, I'd probably give them the edge. Now, Kings are coached by Mike Brown, who was the Warriors' lead assistant for years leading up to this.
Yep. Coach of the year.
And
Yeah,
absolutely,
100%.
I agree with that. And honestly, I think it would be a 7-game series. I really do. The Kings, they don't have that experience, so I don't
6
trust
or 7,
them.
yeah.
I don't
Yep.
trust them, but I do think, look, they can score on anybody. That offense is insane. De'Aaron Fox is playing his ass off. Sabonis is playing his ass off. I love the way Sabonis is playing right now.
Sabonis has been nice.
And they have a true. I mean, y'all haven't seen it. Y'all have literally not seen it in your lifetime because that's how long it's been since the Kings have been in the playoffs. but the Kings are going to have a true home court advantage in the playoffs. Like, it's going to be nuts there. Almost in the same way where, like, the Raptors hadn't been to the playoffs in a while, and it kind of been forgotten how raucous their home crowd was. And in the playoffs, the Raptors are their home crowd's as loud as anybody. That's how it's going to be with Sacramento this year. And especially if it's Gold State, a Pacific Division rival, in-state team, it's going to be insane. The Lakers, this is going to sound sacrilegious as a Celtics fan, but I'm like heavily rooting for the Lakers to get in just because I think they're fun to watch. I really do like the way they play. I like when they're up and down.
Too. I am a Celtics fan and feel that.
Yeah, because I like the way D'Angelo's playing.
I want to see LeBron and AD over the team.
True.
Of course.
True. Now, here's where I disagree a little bit.
Over Utah?
I wouldn't mind seeing Utah. I do like Utah's squad, but I do want to see LeBron and AD. Now, LeBron's got plantar fasciitis, which is a terrible injury. So, my belief on how well he can manage in a 7-game series, I really don't know. That's a easily re-aggravated injury. And they're being pretty vague about when he's coming back. If he does come back before the playoffs, I believe it would be that very last week. So I believe we're still two and a half weeks away from seeing LeBron. So I don't know, but I do hope.
I also just want to say Dr. Warner called that. Just want to say
you called plantar fasciitis. You did. You did mention it a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I did on the pod because you were like, it looks like an ankle injury. I was like, the way he was holding his foot, it looks like it possibly could be like a torn tendon or a plantar fascia under. So.
I'll go. My next question is this, okay? Yep. And this might be bold for me to say, but I honestly was thinking about this, right? About Chris Paul specifically.
Yep.
And the hype of Chris Paul. Personally, right? I was looking back at this. I don't remember Chris Paul owning a stretch where he was the best point guard in the league ever for a long time.
You missed it. You missed it then. It was about 2008 to 2014, and then Steph took it.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I'll tell you this.
He took it from Nash.
Can I answer?
And then he went. He took it from Nash, and he was for like half a decade, a little more.
I got to answer this just because Keenan was a kid. Y'all were kids. I was in high school, like really watching. I loved that version of Chris Paul, and yeah, Chris Paul was undoubtedly he's point guard for a reason now. All right, and 07 to 14, Chris Paul, Pelicans, Clippers, Chris Paul. Look. I know people hate him because he be throwing out nut shots. He be doing some bitch shit sometimes. I get it. Like I said, he was one of my favorite players in high school, and over time, it's dissipated because of how annoying he can be, right? But that being said, 07, even up until when Curry took it from him, still in that 15-16 range, Chris Paul was no holes in his game. No holes in his game. And that's why he took it from Nash, because you still could have argued.
He's a 6-foot brawn.
You still could have argued at some point, Kid and Nash. But man,
I've called him that forever. He's a 6-foot brawn.
Chris Paul could take over games. He had nobody around him except for David West in New Orleans, and he was winning games with him. 6 foot. Could get to the rim whenever he wanted because of his quickness. Lockdown on defense, about as good of a defensive point guard as we've seen. Him, Gary Payton, and Jason Kidd probably. I don't know about the other ones in the 80s and 70s, but since I've been alive, definitely Chris Paul.
If you want to count Maurice Cheeks.
Cheeks.
Maurice Cheeks was great.
But yeah, Chris Paul was definitely point guard.
Sidney Moncrief, I know he was a 2 more so, but yeah, Sidney Kidd.
Yeah, he was a 2. But no, Chris Paul definitely was that dude for a little bit. So wait, what was your question? That was more of a statement saying Chris. Were you asking? Well, that was a general question.
This was a general question. Because for me, I don't fully believe that.
What do you believe?
I would say. Okay, go, Keenan. You go first.
No. All I was gonna say was there's just a small.
Cam's
point.
Gonna come out and say something like.
Obviously,
No, go ahead. I'll get to it.
He's gonna say something wild, and I'm excited for it.
I just want to say, actually, Keenan, let me cut you off.
Exactly.
Let me cut you off, Keenan. I do want to say this on Instagram yesterday. I thought of Kamden because I saw a clip of Quincy Acey. And Kamden at one point
had to bring this
Let me just preview this before Cam gets to whatever point he's going to finish. I know Keenan's going to talk, and I know Cam's going to say someone was, but Cam at one point said Quincy Acey, who was like a second-round pick, I believe. I could be wrong about that. He definitely had a second-round pick career. What'd you say? He was going to be the best point guard in the league? Or it's not point guard, but power forward in the league?
He said, Quincy Acey, I got it. I got it for you here. 2013, 2014, we know how great Blake Griffin was. He said in about 4 to 5 years, Quincy Acey is going to be better than Blake Griffin.
Like, what?
It's exactly what he told me.
Like,
and we were like, wait, what? He also said
Griffin
Russ Smith was AI.
Yeah, he did say that.
Okay.
I don't know. We're not going to let that slide
overseas.
either.
Overseas,
cool.
He was AI.
Cool.
He was.
Overseas, Dwight Howard right now is Wilt. Cool.
Yes. I know. I made some bad calls.
You were 1 for 2 on Russ Smith being overseas AI, but you did say NBA AI. But you know, but yeah, Quincy.
That's why we got a problem.
I did. So, this is what I would say.
Okay.
During that stretch in the 2000s after Nash, I feel like there was a handful of point guards that did things better than Chris Paul. Not for as long as Chris Paul, but I would go with, listen, Darren Williams was unreal for a hot minute. Okay?
True. That was an
argument. Second best at one point.
Rajon Rondo was unreal at point guard.
Played one of the best games I've ever seen live.
Yep. Tony Parker was doing stuff pretty great.
Never.
I think he was.
Those first two.
Tony Parker's best.
Tony Parker is not even in. You mentioned Rondo and Deron Williams. Tony Parker isn't even in their class, and Tony Parker's got the rings. Player to player, though, Tony Parker.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yes,
so,
you're right. Okay.
So here, like, if you want to compare it to the day, it'd be like if you want to count Chris Paul as like Steph, Tony Parker on that level would be someone like how maybe like a few years back how Kemba was to Kyrie, Steph, and Lillard, something like that. But go on.
I just think that personally, those first two that I said, Rondo and Williams, to me were better during those times. I think that moving on afterwards, that the Stephs, the Russell Westbrooks that we saw, depending on who you call a point guard, I would say that some people like James Harden were unreal during that time. Okay? And the hype on Chris Paul, I get it. He's a great player. He's good. But he's never had that three-point aspect to his game. He's had teams that he's played on that were loaded. Those Clippers teams were unreal at those times, okay?
They were.
And they never went the distance. They never went the distance.
Kyle. You're good. I got him.
Here we go. I'm listening.
I got him.
I'm kind of agreeing on Cam.
I'm listening.
I'm agreeing with Cam on some things. I cannot wait to respond. I do want to hear Keenan first.
I am too, but keep going. Keep going, Cam. I got him, Kyle.
I'm interested to see where you're going to go with this. Also, Chauncey Billups was nice back in the day, too. But keep going.
I fucks with Chauncey. I don't know about Chris Paul, but I definitely fucks with Chauncey.
No, I was going to say Big Shot Billups was lit, but not Chris Paul.
Love Chauncey.
Not Chris Paul. I mean, Chris Paul got a David West second-best player team to the conference finals to play against the Lakers, took him 6 and played one of the best games I've ever seen a player play in my entire life. But anyways, that's just an aside for that. During that point, better defensive point guard than Chris Paul at time was, no one. All right, so you have the best point guard in the league, you have the best defender in the league at the point guard position, you have the best passer in the league at the point guard position, and probably just the best passer in the league. You might argue LeBron, whatever, I wouldn't, because the efficiency of Chris Paul with that passing as well. Chris Paul didn't score 28 a game because he didn't want to score 28 a game because he wanted to get others. He could have averaged about 28, 5, in 9.
If Chris Paul wanted to average
8 to 9.
If Chris Paul wanted to average 30 at that time, he absolutely could have. In his athletic,
he could have averaged 30, 100%. So the thing with Darren Williams couldn't orchestrate an offense as well as Chris Paul, he could score on that level, but he couldn't orchestrate an offense as well. Rondo couldn't score on that level of Chris Paul, but he could orchestrate an offense just as well. He was like a combination of them both. Obviously, Rondo had games where he was absolutely spectacular. I believe the 44, 10, and 9 he put up against the Heat in Game 5, I want to say, in Miami. Absolutely amazing. Wow. But, like they both had great moments, and they were both great point guards. But then Chris Paul was a combination of them both, and defensively was better than both of them. So that's where Chris Paul gets it. You're right about those Clippers teams. Those Clipper teams were loaded. But 1 year Chris Paul got injured. 1 year Blake Griffin got injured. 1 year they choked when they lost to the Rockets. And then it pretty much went into the Warriors dynasty. And then
they choked
it went
1 year
from,
against
Nash
the Thunder as
passed
well.
the torch to Chris Paul, and then Steph just took it from him. But you can add anything else you'd like to add, Kyle.
Listen, Cam, you bringing up Rondo, that's like the best. Like, like you said, you're a Celtics fan. I'm a Celtics fan as well. That's my favorite era of the Celtics. And even I forget, like, the greatness of Rondo. Let me address Deron Williams first.
Oh, he was amazing.
Right?
It's weird that you brought this up because I just happened to. Keenan's been talking about all the stuff he's been looking into with stats and stuff. So it's gotten me kind of in that mode. And I've just been looking up random players here and there just to see, like, does my memory match up with, like, what the stats say, right? And so I looked up Deron Williams the other day, like literally yesterday, I believe it was. So it's funny you mentioned this. And he averaged way more assists than I remember. There was a time he was averaging like 23 and 11, which is basically Chris Paul numbers. And I didn't remember that. I thought he was around 8 assists, and I thought the argument was more to do with them getting to the conference finals that 1 year, and they get to the semis after that. But I figured it was more to do with his size and strength and how he could get to the bucket. That was part of it, but I did not realize he was dishing out 11. So he really was a difference maker for those 3-4 years in Utah. Now, he was not the two-way player Chris Paul was. It was an argument for a hot minute, like you said. But when you mentioned Rondo, and Keenan, who'd you mention in the last part of your argument before I get to Rondo? You said, you mentioned the Clipper teams. So they choked one other year. They choked against the Thunder 1 year. The Clippers did when they should have won. So they choked twice with the Clippers.
Sorry, I said 3 years. I meant 4 years.
So they choked twice out of those years. It's funny, the revisionist history with the Clippers, that Clipper team, because everybody hated him at the time with how much Doc and Chris Paul and Blake and Austin Rivers, once he got on the team, would complain. So everyone hated them at the time. And now everyone wants to act like they were the absolute favorites at the time. And I can attest that was not true, because I would damn near pick them to win every year because I loved their roster so much. They had so many players I loved. I would pick them to come out of the West.
Yeah.
And it was, I can't remember who it was at the time, but people were not picking. It was people were picking the Spurs and the Thunder most of the time. So they were always third in the top billing.
It was the Spurs.
Yeah. So
it was the Spurs for the most part, and then afterward, I mean, before that, you had the Thunder because the Thunder made their run, and then they had Harden, Durant, and Westbrook, and then it just went to the Spurs.
Correct.
During that time, that's what it was. And the Clippers were like the third best team within that
if
ring.
we want to specifically talk about Rajon Rondo, that's more of an argument than anybody really made at the time. There was this one moment, one summer, where it was thrown out that there was an offer for Rondo for Chris Paul to come to the Celtics. And as I said, around this time, Chris Paul's one of my favorite players. Rondo's certainly one of my favorite players. And it was like breaking my heart because I'm like, yeah, Chris Paul probably gets us over the top, but like Rondo is such a one-of-one player. I've never seen anybody like Rondo.
Yep.
And just thinking about it, his highs probably were higher than Chris Paul. There was times where he was unbelievable to watch. You want to talk about someone who can have an effect on a game without scoring 1 point? Rondo has that. Where many, I'm going to say Chris Paul doesn't have that, but I'm going to say there's so many players that do not have that. Like Rondo's in a class, not by himself, but probably with like Jason Kidd, Magic, and Bird, and maybe even Jokic.
Small.
And I don't know if Chris Paul's in that. Because, Chris Paul. A lot of what Chris Paul could do, is an outstanding passer still, but he can score the rock. Rondo can't really, or he could when he wanted to. That's the funny thing about Rondo. When he wanted to, like you said, he could give you 44, but and all of a sudden develop a jump shot. Yeah. But he for a stretch, that second part of the Celtics run after they won the ring, Rondo was unbelievable. And I think that is more of an argument. I remember
he was their best. One,
I was just gonna say, I remember D-Roy bringing that up. Like, yo,
I
Rondo
personally
or
thought he
Chris
was their
Paul.
best player probably when 11.
Yeah, those
Roughly
early
around there?
2010 teams, Rondo became our best player, and without being able to score the ball consistently.
I would personally say that.
He's an unbelievable player. Unbelievable player. I like that argument. I do like that argument.
I felt around 2012. I felt around 2012 personally. I remember bringing this with Trent and talking about it. At that time, I know you probably would have hated it, but I always felt with team fit, I would have traded Rondo for Westbrook. I felt and here's the reason why. At the
KD's
time,
purposes.
the way Westbrook was able to score the ball, push the pace, and actually he still had he still could control pace and control time. Like, I felt that was what the Celtics needed at the time, and someone to orchestrate the offense better was what they needed in Oklahoma City. I always felt like that could have been a trade. Obviously, we throw other pieces in it, not just exactly
Looking
that.
back, like, had that trade
I always felt like that was something that could have happened.
Had that trade happened, Westbrook would have made some sort of impact on the Celtics. I'm not sure what. But looking back, Rondo definitely would have made KD better, and he probably would have made the Thunder better, but not necessarily better than Westbrook. Looking back, it wouldn't have really mattered just because of how much shooting was not around Westbrook. It would have been the same for Rondo. Whereas the Celtics, they always at least had Pierce and Ray Allen, who were elite shooters, you know? And even guys off the bench who can spot up. So, you know, Rondo had toys to his advantage, which Westbrook did get later in their career, you know, especially with that 2016 run. There was weapons, but for whatever reason, they never surrounded KD or Westbrook with shooting. And, you know, they had James Harden, but they figured, hey, why don't we trade him?
Yeah,
So,
I don't.
You know, but that's a great question. I'm glad you brought that up. But to answer your question, yeah, there was a stretch where Chris Paul definitely had that title. Deron Williams was the main argument for a time. And Rondo should have been brought up more, but was not. I think it was brought up a little bit here and there, but, man, Rondo was special. Special, like, in a way that other players are not. I will say that. Kamden, question 3, because I know we're taking a lot of your time here, and I still got to get to mine.
Yep. You are my sleep time. Yep. Question 3, real simple one. I'm going to try. It's this. So, this generation of basketball is so fun to watch. Literally,
Absolutely.
I'm going to say it right now. I like watching the NBA today more than I like watching the NFL. I think they are that entertaining.
Damn.
I watch basketball almost. I love it. I love
interesting.
it.
I love
interesting.
that.
Yeah.
Go on.
I love it. Just watching players go off and score. It's the offense that you can watch right now is awesome. And there are so many players, randos, that have the bag and can score the ball. It's awesome. And the offensive efficiency is off the charts. They're scoring better than ever before. And for me, I am taking a change of heart in some ways of I don't know if I can compare generations of basketball anymore. I really don't. Because if you look at the efficiency of the way they score today, like somebody like Giannis, the way he's scored, I think it was a few years ago, one of his best years of an efficiency, he was scoring better per 75 possessions than Kobe Bryant in '06, which is unreal. That year for Kobe Bryant was unreal. But yeah, I'm sure you've heard of that. And it's just blowing my mind. And I'm thinking about player comps, right? And I think about Shaq and how dominant Shaq was, right? And how amazing Shaq was. But then I go to Joel Embiid. And Joel Embiid can do things that Shaq could never do in terms of spreading out the floor, shooting threes. I don't even know how Joel Embiid would be able to just dominate, I feel, in that era of Shaq. Like an Embiid and Kobe thing could work out really, really well. So where I'm going with this is, I guess my question is, with the way players are scoring today, and the way that players like Julius Randle can go for 57 sort of whenever he wants to, like this low-key way, and he's like nice, okay?
Yeah.
It's like, how do you compare those players from generations in a way that's fair? I don't know if you can. That's my first question. And then second question off of that is, yes, I do, is with that Julius Randle and Jalen Brunson thing, are they legit? I don't know. I don't
Can I
know.
answer this
Jalen
first?
Brunson was a signing that I was like, that's
Yeah.
stupid. This summer I said, that's stupid. Why would you get Jalen Brunson for that much money? Stupid. I was wrong on that one just as much as I was wrong about Quincy
Trae Young.
Acy. He's unreal. Trae
We were
Young
both
too.
wrong on Trae
Yes.
Young, but go on.
Yep. So those are my two questions. Are the Knicks legit? How do you compare generational talent?
I'm going to answer your second
go on,
question
Kyle.
first. I'm going to answer the Knicks part of it first. First of all, Julius Randle had my favorite stat line ever, possibly. He had 57 points, 1 assist. The only thing that could have made it better was if he would have had 0 assists. Ideally, he has 0 assists and he has a 57-point game. That's one of my favorite stat lines, if not my favorite stat line ever. All right? Secondly, are the Knicks legit? Yes, I think they're legit. The Celtics had a great showing last night, right? They beat the Kings in impressive fashion. They looked like the Celtics of the first half of the season. But prior to that, like if the Celtics can continue that, great. That'll be good for them. But my point here being, had the Celtics for some reason faced the Knicks in the playoffs, I think a team like the Knicks, the way the Celtics were playing, could beat them. The Knicks are so smart. The Knicks are sound defensively, which you expect from a Thibodeau team, right? A Tom Thibodeau coach team. So they can defend, but they're just smart. You know what I mean? The way they approach, the way they do the little things, they are a very well-coached team, and they're a professional team. And I don't take that lightly. You know what I mean? Whereas the Lakers, in the beginning of the season, before their trades, they were just a mess. You know what I mean? And you did not see that. The Celtics right now, all the talent in the world, again, last night's game notwithstanding, all the talent in the world, but they were just losing games in horrible fashion, which you did not see from the Knicks and have not seen from the Knicks all year. They put together win streaks over the year. They got Julius Randle. They got Jalen quickly off the bench doing work for them. Mitchell Robinson's playing great. I said on here a couple weeks ago, actually, Cam, I think RJ Barrett's playing great. I think next year, I don't know who they're going to get. I don't know what offseason moves. I do believe they're one of the next people to get a big player in a trade by not moving for Donovan Mitchell. I think they put themselves in a position for like a Towns, maybe an Embiid if things go south in Philly. But they're definitely in position for the next guy.
Jaylen Brown,
maybe. Who knows?
That would make me so sad, but maybe.
Who knows? My point being, regardless, even if they make moves for nobody next year, I think they're contender status next year. Like, I just see it. Like, just everything, the way they carry themselves, I just see a contender within the next 1 or 2 years with the Knicks. I absolutely do. I love what I see out of the Knicks. As I've said 3 times already this pod, I'm a Celtics fan, but there's 2 teams I really do enjoy watching this year. It's the it's the Sixers and the Knicks, and those are 2 of their in-division rivals, but I love watching them. So, yes, I think the Knicks are legit. Next to answer, no, you can't compare eras. You cannot compare eras at all. What you can compare now, though, and because the league's fucking weird, all right? They completely flip how you referee a game from regular season to the playoffs more than ever. Like, it's literally night and day now. So, whatever the last game of the regular season is, pick a game that night. Like, whatever the best game of the night is supposed to be. Let's say it's Warriors-Mavericks because they play tonight. If they play on April 8th, and it's going to be like a playoff-like atmosphere, it's going to be called so much – the game's going to be so much less physical than what that same game would be in the first round of the playoffs. It's literally night and day. So I think you can compare playoff stats and playoff version of players, as far as James Harden and this and that. But as far as offense goes, no. Like, literally, I think the Celtics were, like, the best offensive team in history last year, and I think the Kings surpassed them. And I think they, like, blow the KD Warriors.
The Mavericks since the break have been great.
And I think all these teams, like, blow the KD Warriors teams out of the water. And I don't think any of us would say any of these teams are better than the Warriors with KD and Steph and Clay offensively. Like, that was insane. They could get any shot they wanted at any time. And, no, I wouldn't pick last year's Celtics over their offense. So, no, it's very hard to compare eras. The game's so much different or so much – it's almost like a cheat code now on offense.
We might not even
Like, it's just –
Yep. We might not even remember the Kings' offense, what it is 10 years from now, this team. We might not even remember.
For real.
Yep. But we're always going to remember those Celtics and Lakers teams. We're always going to remember those Spurs
Mm-hmm.
teams. All 5 players that started on all those teams
Mm-hmm.
too. That Warriors team that we mentioned, we're always going to remember those great
Mm-hmm.
offensive teams.
So yeah, no. To
So-
answer before Kean goes in, regular
Going in on
regular
this,
season wise.
Go on, sorry.
Oh,
You
no,
finish.
no. All I was gonna say was regular season wise, you can't compare because like he said, the Giannis stat where he's more efficient than Kobe, or he's doing something at a higher rate than Kobe in 06 when Kobe was averaging 35 a game over an 82 game season, and Giannis plays something like 30 minutes a game. He doesn't even play the minutes that Kobe does.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane.
Yep.
And that's partly being
Yes.
Giannis is special, but it's partly with
Yes.
how
And-
the spacing is and everything else.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
And if you think about it, Kobe was scoring when the league average of scoring was
Way
like
down.
barely 100, where now it's well over 100. So yes.
Yeah. So I have like more perspective on this now because I've been going through. It's something that I've been putting together for this channel later on. The top 15 MVP seasons since the merger. So since like since 76, 77. So I've been going through, literally looking at the best player of that year or the best couple because I'll go to the season leaders and see things. And I'm getting into that comparison stage between the first MVP I wrote down was Moses Malone, 81-82, played 42 minutes a game, averaged 31.7 points per game. And then the last one I have was Giannis's 18-19 season. I've been debating on going Jokic's too, but like that 18-19 season, Giannis played 32 minutes a game and played 72 games, I think, compared to Moses playing all 82 and 41 minutes. And the numbers are still the same. And yes, that is a lot of the talent of Giannis. But if anybody knows Moses Malone, he is one of like the 12, 13 greatest players ever, the greatest offensive rebounder ever. He is an absolute force of a player. He won 3 MVPs in his time, was on par one of the best teams ever in this 82-83 Sixers, which we've mentioned twice now, which is crazy. Because that team seems to never be mentioned. But like the way the numbers and like the efficiency rating has changed, it's crazy because like you look at it like PER wise or like about PER wise, you'll see like Jokic now and Embiid now are better than Jordan in 87-88 when he put up 35, 5, and 6, won a Defensive Player of the Year, and was literally by far, like, he was the best player. I don't know how he didn't get a unanimous MVP. A lot of people got, like, Magic got, like he got, like, 47 votes. Magic got 24. And I was like, wait, Magic was great that year, but that year from Mike was different and probably just came down to record because the Bulls are only 50-32. But like the way the game has changed, you can't compare eras. But Kyle is right. In the postseason, you can compare it. It's not as physical because you're not seeing Kurt Rambis and Kevin McHale, and that's a normal foul. But at the same time, you are seeing more physicality in the paint, more physicality on the outside. You don't see as many. So like when you get to playoff time, you really get to see who is who and what is what. So I definitely agree with your point, Kyle's point, and your point that you really can't compare the eras anymore, especially regular season wise and games played too. You can't compare like with how many games are played, people sitting out back to backs and everything. You have fresher bodies, and it just shows, and it's kind of, and the game's different, more spaced, everything that you were explaining. When it comes to the Knicks, I think the Knicks this year are an extreme tough out. They can definitely get to the second round if they see Cleveland or if they see a reeling Boston team. I don't think seeding-wise they would, but a reeling Boston team, they could make that very interesting with them. Next year, I think they're a fringe contender. They're a team that we have to see what happens with the rest of the league. They get a little bit more camaraderie. I think they're missing another like starish piece. So if you added like I like to say this name a lot, but if you added Pascal Siakam to that team, now we're really talking because you have Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson, Pascal Siakam is not like It's not the Warriors' big three when they were primed or like the Heat big three, but that's a very good three.
That's an awesome team.
If they were going to have to trade, they would have to trade some picks, R.J. Barrett, a couple others, so they would fill out with rotational players. But that would be a very, very interesting roster that no one would want to see, especially with Tom Thibodeau, would make that defensive team would be
You would
you'd be
not
able to
want
get
to face that
stops.
defense.
You'd be able to get stops. Brunson can get buckets late. You'd have Siakam who can go one-on-one, and then you have Randall who's going to be great in the pick and roll, pick and pop, and as we see, can get hot from three, and he's just a bully. So I think the Knicks are one move and one star away from being true contenders, but they are going to make something interesting and difficult for any team that they play.
See, I like their roster enough to where I don't think they need to trade RJ, but if they got a player just of offensive caliber that could do something and, you know, play a little defense because that's necessary for Tibbs.
Middleton's a free agent this year.
Yeah, I don't know how that would work out. I don't know what they got.
But,
I don't know
obviously
what they got for
Milwaukee
cap
sounds
space,
like-
but I do think if they had just one more half of an impact guy, you know what I mean? I think their team just plays so well together.
Yep.
They got a guy like Josh Hart.
If they can keep their team together.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, Josh Hart does the little things.
That's a big pickup. They have
He just does so many little things, and he's a Thibodeau
They're
type
dogs.
player. Like I think he's quintessential to a championship team, and they already have him. Like if they got one more, I don't even know who. Like even a Mike Conley would make a difference. Like they don't need a Mike Conley because they got Jalen Brunson, but just one more like steady guy, they could do a lot. They really could. And you know, RJ's gonna keep growing and keep progressing. I mean, look, he was touted as the number one guy coming out over Zion when they were coming out of high school, just because of how complete his game was. He's like right up there with Wiggins as far as Canadian prospects. So if he keeps progressing at the rate he is, because his second half has been
100%.
really good. He can score at will now when he wants. And he's not the most athletic guy, but I don't know. If he takes a leap next year, the Knicks can definitely be dangerous. But, yeah. I was going to keep going here, but I don't want to.
So, Kyle, do you have your 3 questions?
I have like.
Or do you,
I have like.
it is pretty late. Do you want to just ask one of them and then we can?
Mine are quicker than yours because mine are mostly either or questions. All right. So mine should be pretty quick. All right.
Okay.
I've got a couple from. Shout out to
that.
Trent Bathlon. I got a couple from him that he suggested as well. But let me give.
We need to get him on.
Let me give y'all one right here. Okay. We talked about Jayson Tatum earlier.
Yep.
One thing I respect about Jayson Tatum, he plays every single night. You know, they sit him once in a while like they do every star.
Absolutely.
But by and large, he's healthy. He's in there. He's playing. Let's just say blank team, okay?
Yep.
Blank team, or you got a team and you can insert one star, okay? I'm going to give you an option here, all right? So just picture, let's say it's the Knicks, right? Let's say it's the Knicks, whatever. Just picture whatever you got.
Yep.
You have everything around you that you want for your team, and you can pick one star, and it's a small forward. I'm going to give you 2 options here, okay? You can take Tatum as he is, which is 30 a game. He can shoot. He's going to give you the two-way stuff. He's fantastic. He can absolutely be the best player on a championship team, right? You can take him, or you can take KD as is right now, which is getting injured every 3 weeks. You don't know if he's going to be on the floor. But you got this postseason run. You got, 2 months of postseason. Who are you taking right now? Y'all taking Jayson Tatum, who is more dependable night to night, or are you taking KD and his ceiling, but, you know, all the injury history that he has specifically this year. He's out, like I said, what it seems like every month, every 3 weeks. Who y'all taking?
He's played 42 games this season. So, and he's probably going to end with like 46 to 48. Last year he played 55. The year before he played 35. Really, that Achilles injury was the end of the consistency of Kevin Durant staying healthy. He was injured before a little bit, but the least he played before that was 60. Or he had a 27 because that was a like legitimate injury, but before that it was like 66 really. Going into that, I'm still taking Kevin Durant because I feel like you can seamlessly fit him into any situation, and he's going to be 100% legitimate. If you go with Tatum because of the consistency, you know he's going to show up for work. Absolutely fine, 100%, no argument. You can fit KD more seamlessly than arguably any player ever.
I would agree with that.
I have to go. I would personally go with KD.
And it's so tough for me because I am a C's fan. Right now, JT is my favorite player to watch. He does things that are so fun.
Yeah.
But KD is one of the greatest players of all time. He is, like Keenan said, could get plugged into any of the 30 teams in the NBA, and they're making the playoffs, if not going towards the conference finals. KD is doing that. I think Jayson Tatum is in a space where he's just not there yet. He hasn't shown us that. He could end up, for all I know, being Carmelo Anthony, which I love. Great. But that doesn't get me the rings, and it doesn't show me that consistency in some ways. KD's injuries is definitely a concern, but playoff KD, he produces points. And he's the type of player where he does not demand the ball in his hands the way that some other players do. KD seamlessly fit on the Warriors. KD seamlessly will fit on the Suns when they play together, where Booker can do his thing, on ball, take the ball. KD, you're not just going to leave KD to the weak side to toss over there, but he'll hang out over there, and he'll just do it. He'll be like, yeah, give me these 15, 16 touches. I'll still get my 30.
It's insane.
So that's why I'm going with KD.
Fair enough.
Look, I would agree with both of you guys.
He went. I was gonna say his last game he really played. He had 13 to 17. But
Yeah.
go on.
I'd completely agree with you guys. I'd probably take KD too. I just think it's interesting, like, given where KD is in his career and how I said about Tatum, how he's better. You take Tatum over a lot of players, but you just wouldn't put him in a certain zone right now. But we would still all take KD, and he played half a season, and we don't even know if he'll make it through the playoffs, and we'd still all take KD. And Tatum gives you damn near everything that KD does. I do want to say this has nothing to do with anything. I don't have this player.
He's 98% of KD, pretty much.
I don't want to. And by the way, you mentioned Melo. I personally believe Melo could, with the right team, win a championship in his prime. But that's another story for another day. I'm a big Melo guy. But I just want to mention this guy right here, just because he's playing insane. This has nothing to do with the questions I'm about to ask. But Kawhi is currently playing at a sublime level. Like, he is quietly just averaging 30 points with insane efficiency. Like, I think he's shooting over 50% from 3, too. I could be wrong about that, but I believe he is. Either that or high 40s. But Kawhi's playing insane. Paul George, thankfully, is only out for 3 weeks. And, you know, I lied. They are part of one of my questions coming up. But let me ask y'all this, all right? These two teams are tied together due to the trade with AD. We did hear news today. I don't know if y'all saw this, but Zion will be back possibly in like 2 weeks, or he's going to be reevaluated again in 2 weeks. Who knows? But he got cleared for encore activities today. Next 3 years, all right? You can be the Lakers with LeBron and AD and their uncertainty with health, right? Never know what their roster is going to look like. Or you can have the Pelicans with Zion's uncertainty, with their young talent. Next 3 years, who would you rather be? Pelicans or Lakers? Go ahead, Cam.
I'll go first. I'm going Pels. I'm going Pelicans because I think that their young talent and what they've built around there is really, really awesome. I think Ingram's a legit player. I think CJ McCollum,
one of my favorites in the league.
CJ McCollum is a shooter. He's a nice veteran player. Zion, it's so tough because the dude is just off the court more than he is on. But when he plays, he's so fun to watch. Dominant like you wouldn't believe. Their defense is pretty good. At the beginning of the year this year, they were unreal. They were unreal when they were all meshing together. They had a great starting five and bench players, you know. Grand Theft Auto was just going off, stealing the ball, doing crazy things. The Lakers, I think they're a mess. If you think about the players that they got rid of to get LeBron, to get AD, to get where they are, to get Westbrook, and think about what their team could be today if they kept some of those pieces like Julius Randle, like Brandon Ingram, I don't want any part of that front office in any sort of way. I think that AD, it's so hard for me to say because I was a huge AD fan. He's not it. He can't be a one, and LeBron James needed him to be a one. Really needed him to be the one, and AD he can't take that role. That's where I'm at. So I'm a Pels person all the way.
Listen, 3 years. So we've got to project a little bit. If LeBron is as good today as he's in 3 years, I would take the Lakers because as great as the Pelicans' young talent is, there's no Zion. If there's no Zion, they're not going. Because and there's like Brandon Ingram,
retired,
CJ McCollum. That's so perfect as a 2-3. No, it could be. Honestly, they're perfect. That's perfect as a 2-3. When Brandon Ingram's your 2 and CJ McCollum's your 3, okay, you're talking championship for sure. Mm-hmm. When Brandon's your 1 and CJ's your 2, you're talking play-in team. So, but I'd have to lean the Pelicans because I don't think it's unrealistic to think that LeBron's still gonna be a top 7 to 8 player in 3 years.
Fact number 2. Yep.
It's so and then Anthony Davis. For me to put my faith in Anthony Davis is like me putting my faith in Zion, essentially, because Anthony Davis is gonna play more, but is he gonna play when it matters? That's what I need to know.
Yep.
And regardless if I see Anthony Davis have 55 games on the stat sheet and Zion has say 25 to 30, if they're both not there when it matters, I would lean towards the younger talent that's going to be there, that's going to make things interesting. So I'd have to go Pelicans just because LeBron's will probably fizzle out to a top 20 player, which is credit to him. It's amazing that he was going to be in his 23rd year and he has a chance to be a top 20 player still. But I'd have to go Pelicans.
Fact number 2 real quick. Bronny James Jr. is going to exist. Bronny James Jr. is going to exist, and LeBron's following him no matter what. So that's in the next 3 years.
That's funny you say that. 2 things I want to add. Keenan, you mentioned the Pelicans' future. The Pelicans have all the Lakers picks, right? So Lakers are pretty much capped out on. I think the only pick, unless they traded it this year, I'd have to look. I don't know, but the Lakers might be out of picks for the 2020s. If not, they have one, and that's 2029. But they might have traded that for D'Angelo, which I believe they did, but I could be wrong about that. I don't know. Funny you mentioned Bronny. I was going to say facetiously, does your guys' answer change at all if Bronny comes to the Lakers? But we know that's not happening. But next question.
No. I mean, I honestly think that Bronny is going to be decent, decent to good. It's just really hard to project, and I don't want to fully project because he's turned himself from a second-round pick to a lottery pick in a year. So kudos to him because he's regardless of him being LeBron James' son, he was still going into his junior year so he was not what highly touted as LeBron was, but he turned himself into a future top 10 pick if everything keeps progressing as he does. But he's not Wemby going to change life for an organization. So no, but go on.
Similar question. Over the next 3 years, give you guys 2 teams, okay? Mm-hmm. The Clippers, who also have pretty much no picks the rest of the 2020s due to the Paul George trade. Kawhi injury history, suspect. Paul George injury history, suspect, right? But they're still there, and they still might be there. I don't know. Don't know if they'll trade. Who knows? Who knows what will happen over the next 3 years with those 2? But that's the thing. We just never know. So you have the Clippers.
Yep.
Now, I'm going to give you the Warriors, too. But let me factor in this, okay? Warriors just whiffed on Wiseman. Warriors seemingly whiffed on Moody. He's behind Anthony Lamb and Ty Jerome in the rotation, and they were both undrafted. All right, Kuminga's in the rotation. All right, they overpaid Jordan Poole. That looks.
Kuminga's been playing much better over this last month.
He's in the rotation.
So he's starting to round into form of what they thought he'd be.
He's the one they got out of the 3, right? They still got Wiggins. That's good.
Yep.
Clay, we'll see within the coming years, blah, blah, blah. Jordan Poole, though, this is what really narrows it down for me. That Jordan Poole contract, I think, is atrocious. I don't think they based that contract off of Tyler Hero, and I like Tyler Hero's season much better than Jordan Poole's. He doesn't play a lick of defense. He's very much heat check 6-man guy, and they gave him what you would have given Clay if Clay was in the same position. You know what I mean?
So Jordan, the thing with Jordan Poole that I've noticed is the fact that Jordan Poole is great. Great. He is very good. I'm going to use the word great. When he is the second best option. He is, when it's Steph and Jordan Poole or when it's Clay and Jordan Poole, you see his numbers be very good. But that's not when the Warriors are still going to be at their best, because Clay has definitely elevated his game over the last year, showing he can still play, and then obviously we know the greatness of Steph. So, the thing with them is that him as a third option hasn't fully worked. I don't feel like he knows his role as a third option, and they've eliminated him from the final game lineup. It is Steph, it is Clay, it is Dre, it is Dante DiVincenzo, and it's Looney, for the most part, is what they're finishing with.
Yep.
Or Kuminga. It's Looney or Kuminga, depending on the game. But, Poole does not finish games anymore. It's DiVincenzo, and I don't think that's the wrong move. I think that is the right move, because DiVincenzo can stretch the floor, hit threes at a high level, plus also play high-level defense.
And that's exactly my point.
But go on with
that's exactly my point right there. He's not even in their crunch time 5 right now. They gave him all that money. It's hard to project what Clay's going to look like year to year. Draymond, it looked like he was going to opt out. He would be stupid to opt out and become a free agent next year, so you'll probably have Draymond back if you're the Warriors. But you don't really know what's going to happen after that. So there could be a world where 2 years from now, Draymond's not on the team. Steph Curry, he's very much like Durant, where you just don't know month to month how much Curry's going to play. He just seems to get these freak injuries, which isn't exactly his fault, but it happens, right? So given Steph's injury history, given the contract situations, given what they gave Jordan Poole, given their recent draft history, which wasn't great, where they probably should have traded that number 1 maybe, right? What do y'all think? 3 years?
Well, they had the number 2 pick, and I kept saying they should have traded LaMelo. I thought they should have gotten LaMelo. I think it would have fit in perfectly there. But
I agree with that so much. And that's a story for another day, though.
Either traded it
forever, dude.
Either traded it, or I would have drafted LaMelo, because LaMelo running a point with Steph kind of running a 2 and Clay moving a 3, I think would have been electric.
Unreal?
Be electric. Yeah, he fits everything that they do.
An all-star.
He would fit everything. Yeah, he was last year. He fits everything that they do there. I thought that he would be perfect, but go on. Sorry to interrupt your question.
Oh, no. I mean, that question was finished. Next 3 years, though, Clippers, Warriors. Who are y'all taking?
I'm taking the Warriors, and it's because of Steph specifically. Because I do not trust. If you could guarantee me that Kawhi is going to stay healthy, Steph's had these weird freak injuries, but they're not his body breaking down injuries, which is why you can avoid them. Because before this year, he's been playing 64, 63, 69. He broke his wrist, but that was a weird year anyway. But 64, 63, 69. He's been around that pace, and that is your regular NBA. That's your regular NBA 72 to 75 now. So I trust the fact that he is going to be the top 2 to 3 best player in the league for the next 3 years, which is why I would only go there specifically for that reason alone, because I don't trust that Kawhi is going to be healthy when it matters most. But if you could guarantee me that, I would go with the Clippers. Because I think that because you'd have him and Paul George, and that's going to be better than Curry and whatever they have second probably at that time, unless Clay does what I don't think he fully will and stay that high level.
So I am similar to you, except I could see if the Warriors make moves in terms of if they can move Klay Thompson somewhere for some value, and put some new people around Steph.
You have to remember Wiggins is there too. Wiggins is.
I know.
I just forgot about him just barely, but Wiggins is there. He's still younger, so
Wiggins younger. if they could make Poole more of a second scorer type person and really, it's all down to money. Both those teams spend a lot of money on players that I honestly don't even love. I don't love the Eric Gordon move, to be honest. I don't. I like Norman Powell, but Norman Powell's there for a long time, and he's a $20 million a year guy, and I think he's there till 2026 in terms of his contract. And I think in the long run, right now, the Warriors bench is deeper, and I think that's huge. I think that if you're looking at the teams that are successful right now, you have to have those guys that are on the bench, your 6'7s, your 6'7", 8s, that if they can go in there and they can be the best player on the court during that time for 8 minutes. That's why I think the Celtics are good, because they have Malcolm Brogdon that can go out there for 8 minutes, and he can be that guy for 8 minutes. I think the Bucks are good because Bobby Portis can go out there and make that happen. I think that the Nuggets are good because that team is built around Jokic. Jokic might not be the fastest mover defensively, but he's a body. And they've built around him in terms of we're going to put more bodies around him that can play defense. But also, Aaron Gordon can get a bucket, Jamal Murray, all these guys can score. I think that the Warriors have a deeper bench. I trust Steve Kerr more than I trust what's his name, Tyronn Lue. Ty Lue. So I'm going Warriors, even if Kawhi and Paul George are healthy. I could see Paul George saying adios, and I could see Kawhi Leonard saying peace as well. So that's my things. Yep, that's my.
I'm going to respond to that.
So I'm going
to respond to that and say the last two questions that I asked, this one and the Lakers Pelicans, I don't really know the answer to. I'd probably lean towards Pelicans with the other one just because of the picks. This one I have no idea. All right, just because of the money doled out. I do want to.
It's tough.
I want to say this.
One's tough.
I disagree with your point about Clay. I don't ever see the Warriors moving on from Clay. I don't think Steph would ever allow that. I think you will be able to get to the point where the league's going with this money and the television deal that comes in a couple years. The contracts are going to be fucking insane. Like you mentioned, Norman Powell being a $20 million a year player. That's going to be whatever Norman Powell is now in like 3 years. It's going to be a $40 million player a year, which is insane to even think. Like that's where we're going to be at. Or even like a $35 million player.
So crazy.
So, I disagree with, like, I think, my point I was getting to there. Jordan Poole, I believe, would be the one to trade. Like, yeah, it's a lot of money, but I think they'll be able to move it, Wiggins, too, I don't know about Wiggins. Maybe they move him. They seem to like him a lot, especially after his finals run last year.
I would keep him.
Yeah, personally. I probably would.
I'd keep Wiggins.
I don't think he's not gonna. He's young. He can play defense. He can be a second He can be he was their second option.
If
last
there would be
year,
a way for them
I would keep
to
him
trade Poole, and maybe if they if one had to go, I think they'd trade Draymond or let him walk in free agency. And Kuminga can bring what he has defensively.
Yeah,
Kuminga has the versatility defensively, but they'd have to bring someone to really be that playmaker point guard, because Draymond's officially their point guard pretty much, you know what I mean? Steph's listed as that, but who sets the offense up? It's Draymond. So they would need at least someone like a Mike Conley. I mentioned that earlier, funny enough, but just an example, like a table setter type guy to go along with Steph and Clay. The other point I disagree with is I think the Clippers are deeper. I think the Warriors are about 7.5 deep, and that's with Wiggins. I think the Clippers with an Eric Gordon. I think Eric Gordon's redundant next to Norman Powell, but I do like someone like Eric Gordon. Like if he were on the Warriors, I think that'd be great for the Warriors. You know what I mean? So I do like the Clippers roster a little better. Not when it pertains to winning a championship this year, because I don't think they have any answer for a guy like Jokic, or if they were to meet Embiid in the finals, if the Clippers were to make it that far, I don't think they'd be able to guard Embiid at all. So I think they struggle there as far as post defense.
They can't guard
exactly.
Luka.
They can't guard Luka, but not anyone can. I really love how Kawhi is playing right now, and I really loved how Paul George was playing before this injury. Like, it kills me that he got injured last night. I'm glad it wasn't an ACL. But the fact that he's doing 360s in traffic tells you, like, all you need to know about where his game is at in his mind. I do have two quick last questions, and we'll get out of here.
Yeah.
These are quick. These are from Trent Bathlon. This one's simple. Bam Adebayo, or let me get his name right. Is it Domantas Sabonis? Sabonis on the Kings. Or is it Domantas? I don't even know what the fuck his first name is, but I love his game. But Bam,
Domantas Sabonis.
Domantas
who y'all
Sabonis.
taking?
Yeah.
Bam or Sabonis?
Yeah, and so I'm a Heat guy, but I think I'd have to lean Sabonis because of the fact that Bam's a great defensive player. He can step out. He can go 1 through 5 because of his versatility. But offensively, he hasn't developed like I was hoping he would. And I just think especially the way the league is today, Sabonis is like a mini Jokic, and I would go with Sabonis.
7 assists, dude. He's
Sabonis.
smart. Yeah, Sabonis is smart, so I want Sabonis.
He's just like his dad.
I would agree with that. Adebayo, also an underrated playmaker. Yeah,
Love Bam though.
Bam's great. He's an underrated
Yeah,
playmaker.
he is.
But yeah, I think I agree with both of you. I would take Sabonis right now. This one's a Trent special though, for real.
Bam is great on every team. Everyone could use a Bam. Everyone could use a Bam.
I'm going to give you a player. It is SGA. Okay. And I'm going to give you a list of players. You just tell me, both of you, yes or no, if you take SGA over all of these players, okay? I'll spoil it right now and say Trent's opinion, he said he would take SGA over all these players. So, I'm going to go in reverse order as far as level of talent. I'm going to go in reverse order here. Would you take SGA over Bradley Beal?
Yes.
I'd agree with that. Would you take SGA over Zach LaVine?
Yes. 100%.
Yes.
I agree. Would you take SGA? These two are tough. Where am I going to order this one? All right. Would you take SGA over Jaylen Brown?
Yes. It's really hard, but yes.
If I would say, okay, so that's kind of a little trick question for me. If you're starting a team, yes. If you want a second option, no.
Well, I don't get it.
That's fair. And it depends on what team it is. I don't know how SGA would fit on the Celtics right now with all the point guards that are there. Yeah, but I do love SGA.
Just player for player.
And it depends, like Keenan says. But if you're starting a team, I'm going SGA.
I guess in the player, I'd have to lean SGA because if I was starting a team, I'd go with him. But like Jaylen Brown, besides Anthony Davis when healthy, is probably the best second option in the league.
Mm-hmm.
So you went SGA, Cam. You went SGA as well, or did you go Jaylen?
Unless I'm forgetting one.
I went SGA.
Next player. Kamden brought him up earlier. SGA or Anthony Edwards?
Anthony Edwards.
Ant.
Okay.
That's a tricky one. Don't get me wrong. I like SGA a lot, but Ant's my man.
Got you. No shame in that.
Razor thin. Like again, I think that like Kamden said when he said face of the league, I didn't blink at it. Like not something I never thought of, but like the trajectory of Anthony Edwards is just higher to me than SGA, so I'd have to go with that.
All right,
even though SGA is phenomenal.
Two more players. SGA versus Donovan Mitchell. Who are you playing? Who you taking? Donovan Mitchell scored 71 points.
I would have to say Donovan. So I would have to say Donovan Mitchell. I think when I did my top 20 list, I had him over I had Donovan Mitchell over SGA. So I would be lying if I changed in 2 weeks. So yeah, I would actually wait. No, I lied. Actually.
So you argued with your own list?
I just thought about it. So my list is actually I have Ant a little lower than Shai, and I have Donovan Mitchell a little lower than Shai. So
wait, so you're changing? Are you changing your your answer based on your list from a few weeks ago? I told you Ant and Don.
No, and my gut told me Anthony Edwards because if I'm future-wise, I think the projection's there. I would be fine if someone said SGA at this exact moment, but I would take Anthony Edwards moving forward. Donovan Mitchell, There was literally a toss-up between them because I had Shea 15 and Donovan Mitchell 16.
That one's super close.
And these are all
I don't
right
even know
now.
if I can call it.
Again, so these are all right now. Then yeah, I would have to take then. If they're right, okay. So
I'm going
today,
Shea.
then
I'm going
I'd
Shea.
have to. If Shea's
But
on the
Donovan scored
Cavs,
71 though.
if Shea's on the Cavs, are they
Maybe
better?
he's averaging like
I don't
32.
know, 'cause
Right
how
now.
does he look with Garland? I don't know how Shea works with Garland.
I think I would have to go Shea. I really
Yeah, I'm
do.
going
I mean,
Shea.
my
I'll say
list
this.
was in depth.
I'll say
took
this.
time to think about it. I would
I'll
have
say
to
this
say
before
Shea,
I do my
I
last
guess.
player that I'm going to compare him to, or give you the either or for. I think you guys mentioned how malleable KD is and how you can throw him anywhere. I think SGA is kind of in that mold too. I think you could throw SGA on any team and he succeeds. I think he could be a point guard for you, and I think he could be a scorer for you. Clearly, he's averaging 32 a game. But, yeah, I think he could do either or at a high level. But my last one, or I should say Trent's last one, SGA versus Devin Booker. Who you taking?
No, Devin Booker.
All right, that was pretty
Book.
cut and dry. That's pretty
Book.
cut and dry. Look,
That's every day for
Devin
me.
Cam,
Yeah.
I want to say this.
Yep.
Please come back on before the playoffs. All right? Love to talk ball with you. Second
Yes.
from the
Absolutely,
Warner Brothas
man.
podcast to you,
Yeah.
we deeply apologize for keeping you up this late. We know you got students to attend to tomorrow, but we definitely enjoyed this NBA talk.
I
And
sure
look,
do,
we planned
man.
for this
I had a
for
blast,
sure.
though.
For
This
sure,
was
we
great.
planned for
Yeah,
this to be
was
like
great.
an hour 20 at the most, and of course, it went to nearly 2 hours. But hey, that's what happens when you guys talking ball.
What did it get to?
143 at the moment.
But
Yep.
But what I was gonna say, Kamden, I love talking with you. I mean, we have a nice fantasy
man.
rivalry, so it's like
Yes, we
everything's
do.
been great. I've been friends with you for over a decade now, so it's
been a long time, man.
Been a long time. I obviously Kyle, always great. I guess you've been my brother for 25 plus years. I guess so. I guess it's been dope. But also, as I mentioned, I wanted to look out. I'm going to be having a little mini series of top 15 MVP seasons since the merger, pretty much over the last 55 years. It's going to be I'm putting it together. I'm about done, so hopefully within 2 weeks I should be starting the little series I'm hoping to do with that. So just be on the lookout for that as well.
Yeah, that's dope. I love that.
absolutely,
That'd be fun.
we got a lot
Good
of
listen.
stuff in store on the Warner
Yes.
Brothers podcast in the near future. Cam, once again, thank you for coming on. Come back
100%.
on within two weeks. 2
Thanks
weeks.
for
Can we
having
have you
me.
back
It's
on in
always
2
awesome.
weeks? Is that possible?
It's a pleasure.
In between the playing games?
I'll be back.
And
Yes,
maybe
you
we
can.
do it
Yeah,
on
maybe
do it on a
we
Friday
do not
night.
do it on a school night.
If we do that, I won't have to catch up on sleep. I mean, I'm going to need like 7 days for this one.
For sure.
I'm going to need 7 days to catch up on
For
sleep
sure, for
today.
sure. This was
Yeah.
the Warner Brothers podcast.
We appreciate it, buddy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you guys so
This
much.
was the Warner Brothers podcast. Like, subscribe, follow, review, all that. We'll be back next week. Cam, great NBA talk once again. Keenan, great talking to you. We're out of here.